Do you know what a registered agent is? If not, don't worry, you're not alone. A lot of people don't fully understand the role of a registered agent and that it is a legal requirement for some businesses. Hi, my name is Greg Bohl from startingyourbusiness.com, and in this video, I'll explain what a registered agent is, what they do, who can be one, and whether your business should have one. To kick things off, what the heck is a registered agent anyway? The brief answer is that a registered agent is an individual or company that serves as the central point of contact between a business entity and its owners. But not every type of business needs a registered agent, which, by the way, is called a resident agent or statutory agent in some states. Each state requires corporations and limited liability companies to have a registered agent. So, if you have a sole proprietorship or general partnership, you can stop this video now because these types of entities are not required to have one. The reason why registered agents are required for corporations and LLCs is that the Secretary of State, or whatever the name of the entity registration agency is in your state, requires one to be appointed before filing the Articles of Organization or Certificate of Formation for LLCs, or the Articles of Incorporation for corporations. Another reason is that unlike sole proprietors and partnerships, where the owner is personally liable for the actions of the business, corporations and LLCs are separate legal entities where the owners make decisions on behalf of the entity. Since there's not always a central point of contact for a corporation or LLC, and there can be many owners, a registered agent is required to be the primary contact in case someone files action against the entity or the Secretary of State has to communicate with the entity. So I've hopefully explained what a registered agent is and why they're needed, but what do they actually do? Well, the primary requirement is to receive service of process, which is the process of officially receiving notice of lawsuits, summons, subpoenas, etc. The registered agent receives this and any notifications from the Secretary of State on behalf of a corporation or LLC, and then gets them to the owners of the entity in a timely manner. That seems pretty straightforward, I hope. But what are the requirements of being a registered agent? And while given the responsibilities of a registered agent are pretty important, the requirements of who can be one are not as strict as you may think. To be a registered agent, you must either be an individual, 18 years of age or older, and live in the state of formation, or be a legal entity operating within the state. It's important to note that the entity being registered can't be its own registered agent and will generally be a commercial registered agent service. A registered agent must also be available during normal business hours, which are generally defined as being between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, at a physical street address, as P.O. boxes and virtual mailboxes are not allowed. You now may be asking, what happens if I don't have a registered agent? How big of a deal is it really? As you now already know, there's no way to skip appointing a registered agent when forming an LLC or corporation, as this information is required when filling out the formation paperwork. But what about after filing? Well, not keeping a registered agent could lead to the state suspending the entity's status of good standing, which will limit its ability to legally operate in the state. Left unchecked over longer periods of time, the state will eventually dissolve the entity, which makes the owners personally liable for the actions of the business. While it can be done, it's a bad idea. After all, you formed a corporation or LLC to have liability protection, and the mere act of not having a registered agent can jeopardize the owner's personal assets if the business is sued. This leads me to a very common question as to whether the business owner can be their own registered agent, or do they have to pay for a service? And as long as the owner is 18 years old or older, has a permanent address in the state of formation, and is generally available during business hours, they sure can. But should they? I know many of you are saying, why would I hire someone to do something that I can do for free? And for most businesses, the owner is actually the best person a lot of times to be the registered agent. But there are a few reasons why being your own registered agent may not be the best decision. So I'm going to get into my top 5 common reasons why you may not want to serve as your own registered agent, particularly if you have a virtual business or work from home. Number 1, Privacy is often the most common reason a business owner may not want to be the registered agent, because the name of the registered agent becomes public record, and it's often easy to see that a person is affiliated with a business by doing a simple online search. Many people want to keep their name and address private, especially if they are still employed or using their home address, as now anyone can access this information. You will get more junk mail after registering, but even worse, if you have a crazy customer or employee that wants to find you, this one is an easy way to be found. Owning a business can also put a bigger target on your back, as someone may think you must now have some money to go after. Look, it's a big deal for some people and not for others. What most of the other people who talk about registered agents online aren't going to tell you is that a registered agent service may not completely keep your name private. You see, they want to sell you registered agent services, and they either don't know this fact themselves or aren't being completely honest with you. While in some cases the registered agent service will keep your name private, some states will also list the names and addresses of the owners online, which a registered agent service isn't going to protect. Each state is different, and the way you can tell if the owner's names are listed is by doing a name search, and we have that information on startingyourbusiness.com on how to do that search. Look at a registered business to see if the names and addresses of the owners are listed. If the names aren't, a registered agent service is going to be more valuable. Well, Greg, this is easy, you may say. I'll just use a P.O. box. Well, that brings me to point number 2, which is that every state prohibits the use of P.O. boxes or virtual mailboxes for the address of a registered agent. It has to be a physical street address where the entity was formed. 3, another common reason to not be your own registered agent is that if you aren't going to be at the address during normal business hours throughout the week. This is a state requirement, and many online or home-based businesses don't keep these hours. Does the state send people out verifying that the registered agent is always available during those hours? No, not at all. But if the Secretary of State tries to contact you, or an attorney tries to serve papers at that address and nobody was there, or mail is returned to the Secretary of State's office as being undeliverable, the business could get flagged. Next, for number 4, if you are forming a business entity in a different state from where you live, you have to fulfill the state requirements of having a physical address, and a registered agent service can fill this role relatively inexpensively, as you can't live in 2 places at once. And 5, the last point is that using a registered agent service provides an additional layer of protection, so you don't miss notifications from the state for the annual renewal report, tax payments, and when other compliance-related documents are due for the entity. In addition to forwarding the mail, they also send email reminders. If you feel like any of those points that I went over today may apply to you, then yeah, you may want to consider hiring somebody to be your registered agent instead of doing it yourself. So the next question is, how do you actually go about finding a registered agent? Well, finding one isn't that difficult at all. All you have to do is a quick Google search for registered agent and the name of your state. Depending on the level of services that you need, a commercial registered agent service typically costs between $100 to $250 a year. Northwest Registered Agent has a popular service that specializes in every state, and they're pretty easy to work with. Another tip, though, is that if you haven't formed your corporation or LLC yet, entity formation companies like InkFile and Zid Business offer registered agent services as well. InkFile offers a registered agent for free in the first year and only charges $119 to renew the service, which is on the lower end of the cost of competing services. Another plus to using an entity formation service like InkFile is that in addition to the free registered agent in the first year, they also don't charge to file the formation paperwork, other than the state fees, of course. Well, that wraps up this video on the registered agent. I hope you were able to learn something useful today, and if you have, I hope you'll hit the subscribe button. It really lets me know that somebody finds my content useful and valuable. And last, if you're looking for more information on starting a business, check out startingyourbusiness.com. We have a ton of free resources to help people get their businesses started. Thanks, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments.